today I have the pleasure of meeting Vanessa and Rob from Intrigue Media. Really excited to meet you guys. Well, Vanessa and we've talked previously, but Rob, nice to meet you. We'd love to know more about Intrigue Media. And just a spoiler alert, you guys will be at our Sync Live event in Atlanta. So very excited to meet you in person too. So let's start with Intrigue. How did it start?
So a long story, very short. Paul DeMarco and I founded the company in 2007, technically, and we were doing it while we were in university or college, and the business was completely different. We were doing digital out of home, so we put up like flat screen TVs in actually the first one at the university center here, and then we sold ads for $50 a month with no contracts, skateboarding around on longboards with backpacks to downtown businesses to try to get kids to come down before 11 p.m.
Oh, wow. That is
Yeah.
very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so our goal the first year was $8,000 in revenue, and we ended up at 20. And we thought maybe there's actually something here because we were just trying to do it to help pay for tuition and maybe some beer money, whatever. But then we realized there's a bit of a gap in the market in terms of like an underserviced, local business. And so through the luck of the draw, we were at a Best Buy, or at the time it was Future Shop, and they had a kiosk in the store where you could like DIY a credit card application. And so we filled out this information on this kiosk at the end of an aisle, and all of a sudden we were approved for $2,500 on a 90-day, no interest, no payment credit card.
Okay.
So that essentially gave us the opportunity to buy a TV, a computer, a mount, and a bunch of cables. And it gave us 90 days to sell enough advertising on that TV to pay for itself. So we did that 13 times.
Of bootstrapping, huh?
Yeah. And it was great. So we did it 13 times over, never paid a dime in interest, and always paid off the credit card within the 90 days. And so in our second year, we ended up doing about $80,000 in revenue. And in our third year, we were on our way to doing closer to 200. And we sold a third of the business to an investment company in a neighboring city. And they took an active interest in helping us like grow and manage the company and capitalize us to bring this digital advertising model into other communities. And so we had this big customer base. We ended up franchising it and putting it into whatever 8, 9, 10 cities. But as we were doing that, we were getting all these questions and comments from all of our customers and people that hosted TVs about websites and like when we were going to start building them for people because their nephew had gone to school and was no longer available, or their cousin now has a full-time job and can no longer help them, or they forgot their password. And they would ask us about how to leverage, like, what's this Facebook thing about, and what's social media, and how do you get to the top of Google? And so we got pulled into online marketing from the customer base. And what was really kind of the tipping point for us was everybody always wanted to know if it's going to work, and how do we prove the value in terms of driving new customers for our clients. Online digital marketing created an opportunity to make that really clear. And so we started to see a lot of our growth from 2010 to 2018 really fueled by helping people with, digital marketing. And then we really started to get a bit more focused and niched, and we started focusing on the home improvement and construction industry. Then
was this, sorry to interrupt, and this was in your local area?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or, okay, in Canada, just for those of you who didn't get a boot.
Yeah. In a boot. Out in a boot, in a boot. And then it was Vanessa's fault that we started going after landscaping. So Ness had worked with a couple of landscapers, and it turned out we were actually doing a really good job. The team knew how to do the job well, and the clients were really happy.
And we got invited to one of the like main landscape association events, by a client, and probably in 2017, 2016, something like that. So it's been some time. Yeah. So one of my first clients when I started Intrigue 12 years ago was a landscape client, and they're still a client to this day. And he's the one who invited me out to Landscape Ontario, like Congress, our like biggest association event, which again, Canada shout out, but it's a massive one. So everyone should come out to that. But it is kind of what made me realize that when we could win in the space, the people are super down to earth, no pun intended, but just a really good group of collaborative people that want to share and want to grow and elevate a whole industry together. So it kind of seemed like a no-brainer for us to kind of dive into this landscape space a little bit more. So when Rob says it was my fault, It
Yeah,
was a combination of me and that client.
I think that's a thank you.
Yeah.
But that first client was just by chance, was it? I mean,
Yeah.
or that you ended up, having a landscape client, and then I've heard so many great things about Landscape Ontario. I do have to go sometime. But so great. So tell me again, when was that? Did you say 2012?
Well, I
Well,
joined in 2012, and
Oh,
then
okay.
we probably went and had my first client for a while, like was in landscape, and then went to Congress, and we started really tripling down in the landscape space probably after that Congress.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, so we went from like a local jack of all, master of none, to a landscape niche across North America. So now we focus on helping landscape entrepreneurs in the residential design, build, maintenance with qualified lead generation.
Great. And there were a couple of things that I noticed looking at your website that I thought stood out to me. And one of the things was that you have reviews of your team members, your within your company on your website. And I
Hmm.
thought, oh my goodness, it just stood out to me as being quite unique that it's people within the company talking about your company. And I really like that. And I think that that's a great example of building a good culture and showing it off. So, what made you decide to do that? Is that something that you've always had on your website?
Probably at some shape or form, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I would
Uh,
think so.
I mean, it's interesting, right? A company, by definition, is a group of people. And so if the organizational setting isn't designed to make people the best they can be, then it really doesn't. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that, because we
Yeah,
work so much in these offices or when we're at home, remote, whatever. We spend so much time at work. It doesn't take too much difference in terms of commitment of time and discipline to try to make it an environment where people can grow to become their best self,
yes.
versus just trying to get people to come in and do a job. And so that's been a core focus for a long time. And it just came from working in places before that we're all talk and no walk. So, all the plot places that have mission statements on their boardrooms and in their hallways with cultural values, but they actually don't mean anything because they're just letters on a wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think our industry is a fantastic industry. But I do think that sometimes it's too frantic to think about culture. And, I even noticed that you have a culture specialist, as a title. And, I think that it is so important. It's important to grow a team that's going to stick together and really, take the reins in a company. So, that really struck me as a nice thing to have and really essential to getting to know you guys as a company.
Oh, thanks,
Um,
Angelique. I mean, I agree with you that it is too frantic to spend time on culture in the whirlwind of day-to-day business. But I also believe that success is found in routine and habit, and your routines and habits are found in your calendar.
mm,
And so we cheat all over the place with calendar reminders and preset repeating events, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday for our team huddles, or if it's one-on-ones or roadmap sessions where we're helping grow people. They're all preset in the calendar. So like you just got to be in the whirlwind, and the calendar shows you what's coming up. And I think that if you spend a little bit of time prepping for it and planning for it, then you don't have to necessarily be thinking about it all the time.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that. Love that. Yeah, walk the walk, talk the talk.
And it is something to be said about like showcasing the team and what we're all about, because then if you can showcase what we're all about, and similar to our landscape clients, we talk about this too, like we use our social a lot for like internal things and like posting about the team and things. And we've had people contact and be like, we want to work for you. It seems like such a great place to work, just because they've been following along on the social side and like get a
Mhm.
taste of the culture. But if you can lead that way, then you'll typically attract people that believe what you believe. And then that's kind of what continues to foster that that momentum and using calendars and structure and habit and all those things, but just makes it so that you can work with fun people and have a good time, which is what we all want, right?
Well, it is. And this, sorry to interject, but like the reason I met you guys was through a friend who said, you have to meet this great group of people and they need to be at your event and you need to talk to them. And that was Jason Lee from Florida. So, yeah, and that's exactly what he said. They are fun. I met them I guess it was at the landscape show in Florida. Like, they need to be at your event, And so, yeah, so that's how you came across to me too.
I'm glad that we crossed paths that way. Yeah, for sure. We're excited about the event. Yeah.
Great. Well, sorry, I just had to interject about the culture. I think that that's really important because it shows who you are. And anytime you collaborate with another company, it's a matchmaking process, and it does have to be both ways for it to work well. And so, yeah, I encourage our listeners to check you guys out and see what you're about. And then, yeah, like you said, you'll attract the right people. Well, and you're going to be doing a talk at our event. So I didn't mean to interrupt. And you see how sometimes I'm a bit scatterbrained, but go ahead and keep telling us about the company and what you're going to talk about and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's all good. I think we're doing the 5 mistakes. So what we essentially we've identified, there's like these 5 core mistakes that people are usually making when it comes to how they go about marketing their businesses. And I mean, I've yet to see a company come through our 4 walls that hasn't made all 5 before working with us. Okay. And so what we do is spell out what the mistakes are and then how to fix them so that people, and we give it away. Like, it's our full process we do for our clients. We don't hold anything back. It's full disclosure. And some people will listen to it and take a bunch of notes and then go implement on their own. And some people are like, oh my God, that's a lot. Hey, can you just come help and do that for us? And we're more than happy to. That's the whole point. But we're big believers in just giving it all away. And so the 5 mistakes quickly are all around. The first one is that we don't talk to the right part of the brain when we're communicating to customers or team members and recruiting, but that's a different story, but we can get there a little bit. The second one is that people think that growth in sales has to come from new business. And they forget that there's a revenue model that every business runs on top of that can be optimized in 6 different places. The third one is that people talk about themselves and not about the customer. And the idea that people don't actually care about you. They care about themselves and the problems they have and the goals they want to accomplish. The fourth one is that people typically don't have strong goals in place when they want to get marketing going. So they're not necessarily looking at the business impact. We hear things like brand visibility, visibility in the community, brand awareness, impressions, traffic, followers, which are kind of really vanity metrics. And really, when people are investing in marketing, the idea is to help grow revenue. And so, what is the goal that we should be looking at in terms of measuring and focusing our marketing efforts? And then the last one is people don't necessarily know how they stand up against everybody else in their industry. So they have no industry benchmarking. So as much as their marketing might be going well, they don't know if it could be better, or maybe it's really bad and they think it's good. But because they don't have a benchmark of like what average looks like in terms of the industry across, say, the US and Canada, it's difficult to understand how well they're doing within the industry. And so, for example, if an industry is growing at 10% and you're growing at 10%, or actually in the last 12 months, if the industry is shrinking by like, say, 5%, which is what it is right now, and you shrink by 5%, well, you're average. If you're flat, you're actually above average. If you're growing by 5 or 10%, you're actually a high growth company. And so that's just from a business growth perspective, but those same ideas work with regard to marketing benchmarking. And so we bring that to folks so they can see what works and what doesn't.
It's interesting that you talk about the overall trends. And so you're talking about all of the US and Canada together, or do you split those up? Do you look at cities or rural areas? I guess I'm just curious how it all, because it could.
All the above.
All of the above. Okay.
There are nuances between, say, Canada and the US when it comes to consumer demand and the strength of the consumer in each of the countries. The trends are similar, but the disparity between them are different. So like in the last 12 months, the consumer in Canada has been more skeptical and a bit more nervous than the consumer in the US. it's kind of changing right now with the election coming up. We got a lot of people in the States just kind of waiting on decisions to see what happens in November with that reality TV show.
I know it. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah. So, we're looking forward to it. We're going to be in Charlotte next week, so we get to experience some of the chaos with all of you. So that'll be fun. And then with cities, and we look at states more than we do at cities. But you look at like California over the last 2 or 3 years has had a lot of people leave the state, and then the neighboring states have actually been growing in population. And where you see population growth, you usually see demand growth. And when it comes to landscaping, movement or moving a house is a catalyst for a purchase. So looking at where people are moving to can give you a decent indication of where like the demand will be stronger and where they're moving from. And then there's Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, right?
Well, and Nashville, apparently we did a presentation. We were like, everyone's feeling the softening market. And then there was like 2 people in the audience who were like, not in Nashville. Like it's like booming right now. So there is definitely some outliers, but there's some benchmark data that's similar across the board.
Okay. No, that is interesting. And you talked about one of the issues was kind of the vanity measures of likes and follows. How do you rationalize when you have a client and they think they're doing really well because of all the likes and follows, and maybe that's more of like an influencer score? I don't know, but is it really relating to business? How do you go about figuring that out, if you don't mind me asking? I don't know if it's easy to talk about it on a radio show, but
yeah, it's just a lot of our clients will come to us and they won't have like their analytics set up, or to Rob's point, they will have a lot of, vanity metrics of like, well, I have this many people coming to my website, but they don't really know if their marketing dollars are working for them. So they are like, I'm putting this money in, I see these like numbers, impressions, visions, but like I don't actually see any of the leads, or I don't know where the leads are coming from. There're not enough of them. There's not enough quality. So by putting the right things in place, you can actually very clearly, now there's a lot of tools that exist to be able to track exactly what the lead is, what the source was, where it came from, and then put to that what the quote value and the sales value is, to really start being able to connect the two, see what's getting you the most money in your marketing dollars, and put more money towards that. So you're just not just that old thing of like half my marketing's working, half isn't, I don't know which half. It's very clear now, and a lot of people just don't realize that yet.
Okay. And when it comes to social media specifically, like if your business is growing the way you want it to be growing, if your revenue is where you want it to be and your profitability is where you want it to be, then have at her. Like social media it up. Go for it. If you're spending a bunch of time trying to figure out how to leverage social media to get better leads, and your leads, to Vanessa's point, aren't where they should be or aren't where you want them to be, well, then maybe we need to like revisit the whole picture. And to simplify the visual, we look at it kind of like a bullseye or a dartboard. And the red bullseye is your website. If you don't have a rock solid website, it can be difficult, because even if you bring human beings, and people need to remember that it's not just traffic and visits and hits, it's human beings coming to your website. If they can't find what they're looking for, they'll leave. And if it doesn't look amazing, then they'll leave. And so, especially with landscape, it's such a visually oriented appeal.
It is, yeah.
Websites need to showcase as such. Now, the next piece, if you think about that green bullseye, that secondary bullseye inside a dartboard, is search. And it's just classic like marketing 101, which is be where your customers are. Customers are on social media. There is no question. However, if you look at a marketplace, only 3% of a market is ready to buy. Those folks, you don't know who they are on social media. They're there. Of course, I'll give you complete, credit where credit's due. They are there. I just don't know which ones are ready to buy. Whereas with search, if I'm looking for a landscape contractor near me, that's a high intent, like a high purchase intent like search query.
Yes.
And actually it's a high value search query, because it usually leads to large construction jobs. I want to make sure I get found when someone looks for that. Yes. And what we find typically with landscape businesses, say between 2 and 5 or $2 and $8 million in revenue, a marketing budget of like $50,000 to $80,000 is not going to tap you out of getting Google searches. So when we look at working with folks, we want to make sure that we're getting found anytime someone looks for your service. And if you have a larger, more robust budget, that there's a lot of opportunity to leverage social properly. But in terms of staying focused on where your customers are, we usually focus on a website and either paid or organic search.
And then out from there
You got
well,
it.
and I have to say that not everybody has an updated website either.
No.
I don't know if you've noticed that. So
a little bit.
Yeah. So no, that's a really good point. And we also don't have unlimited resources, any company, and I think you hit on a valid point. It's like you could be doing 10 things today to get the word out about your company when actually you don't know if those 10 things are actually driving buyers. And social media takes up a lot of effort and time to get views. And so, how are people balancing that with what leads are coming in? I think,
Yeah, well, and like if you really get down to some basic fundamentals of sales and marketing, like having a landscape business owner at high profile fundraisers and at the private golf club in the local community, probably a good idea. Because you got high value customers. And it's, again, be where your customers are. So we don't have to overcomplicate it. But I think sometimes when we say social media, people start to glaze over. They don't know exactly how to approach this whole thing. And they won't pick up their phone. So it's like, the biggest, one of the biggest issues we have, we do a bunch of call recording, is that our clients don't pick up their phone when we generate a lead. And they're worried about what TikTok video to produce when we really just need to kind of sometimes simplify and get back to the basics.
Yes. And answering your phone or having some way to capture it otherwise, hold on to that lead and get back to them within a short amount of time.
And a lot of people won't leave voicemails or anything either. So when we talk about what's a point of difference for you compared to your competitors, like if they work with you, and sometimes in our sessions, people just be like, we pick up the phone. I'm like, it is such a big difference. And our tracking tools also do transcripts of all the leads coming in through phone calls as well. So we can see how many calls are missed. And if the call's missed, the chance of them leaving an actual voicemail is low. So a lot of people just assume that if the phone's not picked up, someone's going to leave a voicemail. Not always the case. Actually, most often not. I'd say 75%, if not 100%, aren't really leaving a voicemail, or 99%. And then they just go somewhere else, right? So that's just a lost opportunity. You're putting money into your marketing, and losing it on the sales side is tough.
You're, like you said, you're wasting money then. That was a hot lead. And what do you think, what's the solution for, I know it's just picking up the phone, but it sounds like you have some tools that you talk to clients about on how to be more efficient with the leads coming in. Did I hear that right? What do you recommend if they go, I'm too busy to answer the phone?
There is services that exist. The common problem, we've even talked about how do we support this a little bit more. There are services that exist that have somebody that does pick up your phone. If you aren't able to, there's also other tools we have at our office. I think it's just through Zoom, right, Rob, where it'll ring on someone's phone twice. And if that person doesn't pick up, it goes to someone else's phone, so that it's not always dependent on one person answering it, which can be helpful.
Yes.
Did you want to add to that, Rob?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's again, to simplify this, if you're too busy to answer the phone and you're not making enough money to hire somebody to answer the phone, then you're not charging enough money. So if you're too busy to answer the phone, that's an indication you need to hire somebody. And if you don't have enough money to hire somebody, that's an indication you're not charging enough money.
Yes.
So if you're too busy to answer the phone, give yourself a pat on the back. Job well done. You're on the way to growth. No, but seriously.
True.
Yeah.
And then think about this just for a quick second. I hire somebody for $50,000 a year to come help me from an administrative perspective, doing the stuff as an entrepreneur I love to do. I'm shaking my head if you're listening to this on radio. and answer the phone every time someone calls. Now, let's just imagine, for the sake of argument and being very conservative, over the course of the year, they answer 30 calls that would have otherwise been missed. Yes. Over the course of 12 months, only 30. And one of those 30 turned into a $100,000 job.
Yes.
Is it worth hiring that person for 50 grand?
Yes.
I would think that's pretty simple.
Yeah. No, but it's great to spell it out that way
Mm-hmm.
because it's, and I think we're a busy industry because the weather throws things at us that we don't expect. We're always having to pivot. Delivery doesn't show up. Things happen in our industry because we're outside, because there's a lot of balls that we have to have in the air and juggle. But putting it that way, I mean, 30 calls is not a
Nothing.
lot. Yeah.
And the odds of it being like 100 or more is more likely.
I think everybody gets at least an extra 30 calls in March or April each year within 1 week, probably.
Yeah, probably. And it is true, just going back to your point, Rob, of like simplifying it, because I've had clients be like, well, we need someone on that can answer 24 hours a day and things like that, which is like, obviously that would be best case scenario. But if you also look at the call logs, most of them are coming in around regular time. And even if you're capturing some of those would be more helpful than none at all. So just simplifying it in baby steps is always helpful.
Well, and one of the things you said earlier is that when you first started, you were helping local, and that was more construction, I think you said, or it was a mix of trades. How does it compare? I guess niching into the landscape industry has maybe helped, but are there things that you learned in those early days that about the trades? Because really, I also think that there's a lot of similarities between all trades. We're moving around a lot. We're outside factors that we're having to deal with. Are there things that you got a glimpse into that in the early days that helped you settle into the landscape industry?
Yeah, we also learned which ones we didn't want to work with because there is there's a lot of there's a lot of similarities for sure, Angelique, but there also is like, I don't know, landscape is some type of sweet spot that I don't know if people that are in the landscape space realize it as much, but we have had the opportunity of working in so many different industries that definitely lessons learned from it, but I think it also just makes us appreciate this industry so much. And I just don't know if you guys realize how like amazing it is and collaborative and the people in it. So coming from the polar opposite, that helped us decide what our A client was and who we want to work with. We always talk about like A, B, and C clients. Like if you can replicate your A over and over again, that's what we're doing in the landscape space. B clients, they're there, maybe home improvement construction that we can move up, or someone in that middle ground. And then there's like the C clients, the complainers, the ones that you don't necessarily want to work with, and how to move away from them. So this niche has kind of just been a happy spot for us. I don't know if you want to add anything there, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. So first of all, I completely agree that the green industry is more open and like work hard, play hard than most industries. So we went after the HVAC space for quite some time, and we found out maybe 12 months in that we're like, we can't work in this space. Everybody is so cards to their chest. They're all a little bit cynical. There's some really big players that dominate from like a manufacturing perspective. So like the Carriers and the Lennoxes of the world have a lot of influence over how people operate. And so it just didn't. We had an HVAC podcast, like we have a landscape podcast, but the HVAC podcast was like people didn't want to share their successes, whereas like landscapers all share everything with each other, even if they're competitors in the same neighborhood. So for us, being open and community minded is a big deal. And I think we also just hit the landscape industry in a time that's really cool because the professionalism of the whole industry has been really gaining a lot of momentum. So in 2019, we did a talk and I asked, who here has heard of Simon Sinek Start With Why, or Jim Collins Good to Great, or Seth Godin All Marketers Are Storytellers, or Purple Cow? And it was like crickets. And then, we go to a room in Louisville and, like half the room knows these people, are studied, or these people. Like the professionalism has really elevated over the last 5 years. And so it's been cool just to witness and be part of.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great insight. And that's still quite a short time, 5 years worth of change. Yeah, I think it's great to hear your perspective on that, because I think you're right. And that's what, we see that, there's so much room for growth, and it's really exciting to be in our industry right now. And I think, COVID, although an unfortunate event, it actually helped maybe have us focus a bit more on, how valuable we are to the rest of the public, and the public maybe see us as how important we can be to their everyday life too. So
Yeah,
it's a great time.
a big thing too is like, and I think a lot of landscapers missed the opportunity. So if you're listening, hopefully you can take this one. So we're a B Corp company, which means that we have a responsibility to environment, community, and making sure that we have like a social kind of outcome. Like we're not just here just to make profit. As a B Corp, we're responsible to people, planet, and profit. And what's really interesting with the green industry and landscaping is it's actually really the only green industry. Like,
Yeah.
like if you ask kids, is driving an electric car a green activity? They will say yes, but it's not. It's just less gray. And landscapers are putting plants in the ground, trees in the ground. We're designing outdoor spaces to get people, moving
Healthier.
and into fresh air. Exactly. And when it comes to recruiting, there isn't much spoken about that, about how, and if you look at a younger generation of people who want more meaning in the work that they do, not just the paychecks, there's a huge opportunity for all the landscapers listening to this as entrepreneurs, as leaders in their communities, to position their business as a place where you can actually impact the planet as a landscaper, even if it's just for a summer. And so I think that's just like another check a box for us in terms of working with a great group of people. And I haven't met anybody yet that can chug an espresso martini, but I'm waiting. I think that's the last check box.
Wait. Where did that come from?
Rob has a theory. I think what you're saying is landscapers are pretty tough, but maybe they're not as tough as you. He has a theory
No, it's just
that
once I
espresso
find somebody,
martinis are meant to be shot, but that's not how it is.
Wait.
Well, let's get
Espresso
Angelique's.
martinis are meant to be chugged all in one go. Okay, so this
Yes.
does
Not the
sound
case
like a
of the-
competition.
No, this is just it's just been a misnomer. People don't realize that it's like a what do you call them?
You're calling it a Jaeger
bombs.
bomb.
Yeah, Jaeger bombs. Like this thing is meant to get you primed up and ready to go for the night. It's not a sipping cocktail by any stretch of the imagination.
It's a martini that you're supposed to sip. We get into this
I'm just
debate, and he's trying to bring it to the
myth.
whole industry. So he would like to know what everyone's take is, if you're supposed to sip or shoot.
Well, maybe we're going to have to test this at Sync Live.
I think so.
Yes.
I think there could be. I feel like this could be something good.
We're trying to start a movement here, Angelique.
Well, I am all for it. And, as long as I don't start dancing on the tables, then I'll be okay. But I don't know.
I could do that with you.
Okay, good. Okay, deal. I totally agree, Rob, about our industry. What can the industry that can make a difference with connecting nature and the built environment? Obviously, we can't do without buildings. I love architecture, but what I love about what we do is we're sculpting the land to take the rain and filter it through our soils and provide fresh water for the rest of the earth. And we're growing these plants that absorb CO2 so we can breathe better. No, it's such an amazing industry that a lot of people don't even understand the impact that we can have, which is why, design, construction, horticulture, all these things, the longer term maintenance, it can all be done better and better each day. And we can also shout from the mountaintops about our industry if we all do it together and we join forces. And I think that the power of collaboration and sharing is really what will get us there. I really believe that. And I just really concur with what you're saying. We're working to get a lot of the local colleges and some education alliances at our event in Atlanta, because I do believe that's also part of the engagement for the future, our future workforce. And we shouldn't have a labor shortage if people really understood what we can do and the power of what you can do. So
agreed. I think when you said you really
let's fix this. Yeah.
Well, I think we are, but I think people are, though. Like the conversation is happening more than it did before. And I think it's really on everybody as at an individual level to start bringing this forward to their communities and to find great people. Like, I can't think of a better job to get toned and tanned in a summer if I'm at college. Like, I'm not even joking,
and you're
but like
paid instead of having to pay a gym membership.
Anyway, I just think
just efficiencies.
Now, I don't mind the farmer's tan, I guess. That's different. But anyway, I just think there's a huge opportunity, to your point, to get a lot of people engaged in the industry.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. Well, this is going to be fun. Atlanta is going to be a blast. We're going to name this podcast Espresso Martinis.
Nice. Yeah, and if you're coming, we'll go through the 5 mistakes in detail and teach you all how to fix every mistake.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks for sharing, and thanks for signing up to come to our event, being a speaker or speakers, I should say. And it's been great having you on the podcast today. And can't wait I'll see you guys at Elevate, because I'll be there too. And we'll meet in person. But look forward to hanging with you guys and learning more about you.
Thanks for having us on, Angelique.
Last plug, I guess, just while we got folks here. If you want to check out our podcast, we have the I Am Landscape Growth podcast. And the whole theme of the podcast is what's the primary growth constraint holding entrepreneurs back in the green industry. And we interview entrepreneurs, association members and directors, business coaches, to provide like a really great, kind of wide perspective on what people see as the growth constraints holding these entrepreneurs back. So it's worth a listen for sure. Check it out.
Fantastic. Do you want to say what your website, how to contact you? It's Rob Murray and Vanessa McQuade. You want to give your contact details?
Yeah, if you go to intriguemedia.com, and then you can contact us there. You can see the podcast, or you can also, if you have something to share on the podcast, submit, and then we can do an interview to see if you can come on the podcast. Would be amazing. We love getting everybody on. And then, you can contact Vanessa at intrigueme.ca. You can just shoot me an email as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Awesome.
Thank you, Angelique.
Thanks, Angelique.
Thanks.